Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Movie Club. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. We are gathered here on the holiest of podcasting days, which is Thursday. That's right, Thursday is the holiest of podcasting days. Of which we are here to talk about the 2014 mockumentary, satire, spoof, parody movie What We Do in the Shadows, starring Jermaine Clament and Taika Waititi, who also both directs the film. I haven't seen the TV show, nor have I seen the movie before this, so this was a first time for me. And I've heard good things, so I was very interested in watching this. But before I get into what I think, Zero, let us know what you think about What We Do in the Shadows.
It's kind of funny that you preface with not seeing the TV show and
Mm-hmm.
everything. I was introduced to this movie many, many years ago.
Oh,
Um, and it was kind of funny because the friend who had introduced it to me was like, "Oh man, you got to watch this. You got to watch this." And at the time that I was introduced to it, I just wasn't into it. It was just kind of like, I think I barely got through like 30 minutes of it. I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna have to save this for another time when I'm in the right mindset or something."
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny watching it now because just now I'm in a much better mindset, and holy cow, this is just one hell of a funny mockumentary.
Yeah.
Just it's it's hilarious. It's a bit dark. It's got some horror themes in the movie and all, but overall, it's just a really a fun movie, and I really like the mockumentary feel because just uh, it almost kind of has like a an indie movie vibe to it, uh, and that kind of makes it feel, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, a little bit more authentic to the whole mockumentary sort of vibe that they're trying to go with it. But
It had a
yeah, just
strange Blair Witch feel to it.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Overall, just it's it's a bit silly as well too. Just especially with how a- the main driving characters in this mockumentary sort of have their own goofy quirks and everything, and I think that's kind of what made it a bit of a fun movie. It wasn't like something that was trying really hard to be super realistic feeling or anything like that. It just felt like it was just sort of like a documentary project video that would be done by some college kids.
Yeah. A question for you. Are you into things like the occult, or I would say maybe more along the lines of classic monster movies like Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, things like that?
I'm definitely into the classic horror movies and stuff like that, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Just still a great movie, even if it is a bit antiquated and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I know there was talk at one point that the classic monster movie franchises were going to be rebooted, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that has since been put on ice for an indefinite time.
What
So,
what happened is they had the test movie, the movie that was supposed to kick it off, which was The Mummy, and it was Tom Cruise. It failed so badly that they scrapped the entire. I think it's called the Dark Creatures trilogy. So it was going to start with
yeah,
the Mummy, and then it was going to go with Dracula, but that bombed because that had big names. It had Tom Cruise, had Russell Crowe in it. I forgot who else was in it as well, but cost a lot of money, and it did so bad that they said, "Okay, we're not doing this." They was like, "Done. We're
oh
finished."
my God, I had forgotten that it was the Mummy reboot because I remember people ridiculing the shit out of the movie poster because there's one movie poster where it had like the female mummy character on the poster, and she had some runes on her forehead, but the runes looked very close to the letters S, E, and X,
Oh no.
and I remember people just absolutely tearing into this, going, "Who the who the fuck designed this movie poster? Did they not look at the fucking runes on her head and go, hey, maybe we should, redesign those because that looks pretty corny.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. That was pretty terrible. I haven't seen The Mummy though, so let's get back into the movie we're talking about. So the mockumentary, you think enhanced your enjoyment of the movie, or was it? That'll be my question, basically. Did the mockumentary part enhance it, or was it unnecessary? What did you think about that?
Personally, I feel it enhanced it. On top of the main focus of the mockumentary's overall theme, with the three starting vampires and then a later fourth vampire that becomes quite significant to the overall story of the mockumentary.
Hmm.
And it has, I guess the way that I'm trying to put it is, it had an opposite feel to one of the George Romero zombie movies that was framed like a documentary. I forget the name of it,
Oh
but
shit, I know what you're talking about too. Um,
that one had a really, really like serious sort of dire feel, where this one was just kind of on the vibe of a dark comedy, to a sense.
is it Day of the Dead? Diary of the Dead.
Uh, yes, Diary of the Dead. That's
Okay,
the one.
yes, I remember that one. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to preface my opinion before I say my opinion. I'm going to just say a few things. One, I'm not a fan of the occult. I'm not a fan of scary movies. I think Halloween is probably one of the worst holidays out there. I am puzzled by adults, a lot of them, who are obsessed with Halloween. I just don't get it. And yeah, so scary movies, stuff like that, not my thing. Vampire stuff, not my thing. Like, all that said, and on top of that, I think when people think mockumentary, they probably remember The Office, which is the TV series that was in England and then came to the U.S., where Steve Carell was the main character in that. I didn't like The Office either, to be completely honest. I do like Christopher Guest documentaries, like Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show. And This is Spinal Tap was pretty good too. So I kind of like mockumentaries to a certain extent. But this movie, I came in knowing full well that the subject matter and the way it's shot is something I'm just not a fan of. And I think that is essentially where I'm at. I I think it's okay. I get the premise. I think it's interesting. But because I'm not really a fan of any of this stuff, it kind of fell flat. There's some parts that are funny. But with that being said, I watched it and was like, yeah, I can see how that's funny, but not laughing. You know, I didn't. I had a few chuckles, I'll say, but I just sat there watching the movie, going, I can see why people would be into this movie, but I'm not. This is just not for me.
And I think I was kind of like you. Just while the movie is funny, it's not like just you're laughing your whole off and maybe falling out of your chair sort of funny. It was definitely more kind of just the occasional chuckle here and there from just things going completely wrong and everything.
Right. It's
And
understated. It's definitely understated. It's not.
yeah,
It's not. It's not a Naked Gun type of spoof or parody. It's definitely I would say more along the lines maybe of a thinking man's comedy, where you're laughing more about the observation than the gag.
yeah, completely. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So I wanna point out though that I did like the performances from the leads. I definitely like Taika Waititi and I like Jermaine Clement. Jermaine Clement I was a fan of for Flight of the Conchords. Business Time is a great song. If you haven't heard it, look it up on YouTube. It's great. I think I put that on the Discord once, and then you told me to put it on the memes because you're a rule setter with that. But yeah, that's really all I can say without going to spoilers. But I can definitely see that people who are into this stuff really enjoying it because they do some clever things with the vampire tropes and the dark creatures tropes in this movie. But I'm just not a big fan of horror, so it didn't do anything for me. I'm not gonna say it's bad, but it's just not. I'll like I said, it's not for me. It's just not something that I think. And like you said, it's not a bust out laughing at the ridiculousness of it. It's keen observations. It's jokes about maybe a little bit of like uncomfortable situations to a certain extent, but I don't. I think it's fine. It's fine if you're not a fan of this type of stuff, you could miss it. But if you are, I think you would really enjoy it. Is my opinion on it.
And I think that's an important call to make, though. You definitely have to have some sort of love for vampire mythos and lore to really, really just get a lot of enjoyment out of the movie. I kind of enjoy the stuff. I'm not the biggest horror fan, but I enjoy sort of like the mythos and legends behind vampires and stuff like that.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, that's definitely something good to preface with because yeah, for me this movie was definitely enjoyable, but mostly to do with just how they interact with all the legends and lore about vampires.
Yeah. What else can we? I mentioned Clement and Waititi. I was actually surprised how much I like Waititi in this. I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, and I've heard that's excellent. He played Hitler in that movie. I gotta see it though. But I saw Free Guy, and I found him more annoying than anything. But I think that was his character, really. But as a director, he's actually pretty good. Like he did Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was pretty good for an MCU movie. This I thought this was good. I did like this to an extent. It's just definitely not for me at all. But like I guess that's what I'm saying is, if this is your thing, I'd say give it a shot. Really, I mean, that would be what I would say on this. If the subject matter is to your liking, definitely give it a shot. It is basically the best thing I can say about it. Really, do you want to get into spoilers? Do you want to say more about the movie before we get there?
Let's start rolling into spoilers.
Okay, we are about to get into spoilers for What We Do in the Shadows, a 2014 horror mockumentary comedy. If you haven't watched it or you're going to watch it and come back, you can come back at any time. And we will get started on spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I kind of wish this movie was about the werewolves. Because they're the ones that I actually like the most in this movie. Not that I think the vampires were bad. I just liked it when they were on screen the most. Because I think they had the funniest gag in that, where they're trying to be pacifists, but they're trying their damnedest and it was just not working. I wouldn't mind a movie about those guys. That would be cool.
Viago being played by Taika Waititi was just absolutely hilarious because, of course, the background that they give for Viago is he's a bit of a dandy man. So just he's got his own sort of eccentricness about him and everything. And it's a bit funny because, of course, the movie starts off with him trying to have a flat meeting to try to tell everyone, hey, if you're gonna kill somebody, can you, lay some newspaper down on the floor and, make sure not to make a mess and just bloody up the couch because ew, gross.
Yeah.
So, it starts off with that, and then later just you get to a scene where just Viago's going on a date with a woman and everything, and and he's awkwardly trying to lay down some newspaper and everything, and of course this woman's just kind of bewildered while still talking to him about just what she wants to do in the future and everything. And of course he acts like he's just trying to caress her neck, and then he bites into her and he completely misses, and just blood just
I,
starts going everywhere. And I was just like, oh shit, his own rule just got completely bungled.
I thought that was funny too. And those are usually scenes when, and the way that they do the scene, yeah, there's a lot of bloodletting, but it's like goofy enough where you're not like, ugh. It's not. It's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a bit cartoonish even.
Yeah, kind of like I maybe not maybe like Tarantino, but not as ridiculous. I would say.
Yeah.
I just got done watching this, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm having a hard time remembering gags. Nick. Let's talk about Nick.
Yes.
Okay, so towards the middle of the film, they get two people who they think were virgins, which the gag they used a little too much in this, but okay, fine. And they end up, and I guess the old vampire ends up turning this one kid into a vampire, and that was an interesting kind of thing that they did with that, because that could have easily been like, oh, here's the young kid telling the old guys what to do now. I'm like, no, that would have been pretty lame, but they did a decent job with that, I guess.
Nick's sort of introduction into the vampire family, so to speak. It's kind of funny because throughout the first half of the movie, just um, Viago, Vladislav, and Deacon are just so antiquated in their manners and mannerisms.
Hmm.
And when Nick sort of is introduced, he introduces them to all sorts of like modern day technology. Like one of the funny gags was the introduction of Skype to Viago,
Oh God.
because of course Viago ends up learning that his old familiar is still alive. So he Skype calls him. He's like, and he kind of playfully gripes to his old familiar. Hey man, you didn't pay for the correct amount of postage. It took me forever to get to frickin' New Zealand. And of course, it's just like you've got his familiar being like in his 90s, groveling to him, going, "Oh, master, I'm so sorry. Hey, what about that promise to turn me into a vampire?" And then, of course, Viaga just dismisses him immediately. He's like, "Well, it's good to see you. Bye." It was just like, ooh.
I think the funniest joke in the movie is when is when Vladislav is on I guess he's on eBay, and he's like, I'm doing my dark bidding on the internet. It's like, oh, what are you trying to get? It's like, what? I thought that was kind of funny. It was before the what do you call it? Before the masquerade ball.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It wasn't
All
that.
because he got smurned by the Beast being the guest of honor to the unholy gathering, or the unholy masquerade rather.
Yeah. Jesus, is there much more to talk about? This is a short movie too. This is only about an hour and 20 minutes, so not much happens really, except for a few gags. It makes sense that this turned into a TV show, although I know the TV show doesn't follow these characters at all. I think they follow a different set of characters.
Yeah.
But
All in all, just it's just kind of interesting to, especially with the introduction credits, because it even has the vibe of like a documentary as well too, because you've got the endorsement by the New Zealand Documentary Fund, and they're
mhm,
just like, wow, that's one hell of a endorsement right there. Holy shit, they're
yeah,
really going hard on this whole, hey, seriously guys, this is a real documentary. You gotta believe this.
right. And that's what most mockumentaries tend to do. Oh, not so much the Christopher Guest ones, but a lot of the horror documentaries tend to do that, or the horror mockumentaries, I should say. They tend to do that as well. Anything more to add, really, on this? I mean, I'm kind of fresh out.
It's a bit funny that you mention about how you really quite like the werewolves and everything.
Yes.
Because apparently there was a lot of joking between Taika Waititi and
Clement.
uh, Jermaine Clament about making a sort of companion mockumentary called What We Do in the Moonlight, and apparently it's just been sort of punted around, and they haven't really put anything solid. And supposedly just one of the public statements that they've made is just they um, they keep feeling bad about talking about the project and never making it. But they also had clarified, hey, it did take us almost 7-ish years for us to make What We Do in the Shadows. So
Yeah.
if it took us that long to make What We Do in the Shadows, then expect our werewolf movie to take probably just about as long.
That okay. Well, first, with the name recognition that Taika Waititi has now, I doubt that heavily because he is he is pretty much now the it director in Hollywood when it comes to high budget movies. So if he wanted to just say, "Yeah, I'll do your third Thor movie, but give me money for What We Do in the Moonlight," he would get that instantly. He would. That would be like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll take it. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Do it. Go." Like, you do your movie for a year, come back, and you're going to do the third Thor. Great. He could have that easily. So I don't buy that, really. But on the other, but you also want the movie to be good, so you don't want it to be a rush job. So maybe they need to find better ideas or something different for the movie itself. Because if it's just What We Do in the Shadows, but with werewolves, that'd be kind of disappointing, I guess. But yeah, I kind of don't buy that. I'll say, because if what it sounds more like to me is, yo, I'm doing all this other stuff right now that I'm more excited about than something I did in 2014. Okay, so why don't you just lay off, please? Thank you. I mean, if people wanted it bad enough, I would guess that he would probably give Jermaine Clement the okay to either do the movie on his own or just hire somebody else to do it. If people want it that badly, he could possibly do that. But he's got options. He could do it if he wants to. I just think he's not that interested in that right now. Which, to be fair, if I was in his boat right now and I am doing all these big name projects, making all this money and getting all this acclaim, yeah, I don't think I'd want to go back to doing that right now. It's when my career goes in the downturn is when I would say, you know what, let's do another What We Do in the Shadows. That would be my mentality, at least.
Yeah. So, it's kind of an interesting concept that's floating around, but yeah, just I'm kind of with you that just since he's such a big name in Hollywood right now, just something that is more like a niche indie project. Yeah, he's really not going to want to do that because it's not going to bring further critical acclaim or anything.
Oh, it probably bring critical acclaim, but the way Hollywood works is you are what your last hit was. And if he basically goes from making 400, $500 million grossing films to then his next movie is What We Do in the Moonlight and only makes 7 million, someone could look at that and go, oh, that's pretty much a dud. I thought this was Taika Waititi. He does $100 million, $200 million grossing films. I thought that's what he was. I guess he's not, that's not the magic touch after all, which is bullshit, but that's unfortunately how the business in Hollywood works, especially when you're a director. If you want to do those big budget, insane looking types of movies, you have to keep bringing in the cash. And you have one little exposure in the armor that shows that, oh, he doesn't make all the money in every movie he makes, then he could lose that. So it's a catch-22, really. So I think if it happens, someone else is writing and directing it. Or Jermaine Clement is involved in some way writing it, but directing, it will be someone else entirely.
Yeah, that
Anything?
definitely seems likely. As far as anything else in this spoiler territory, um, I think the last part of the movie where we see the interaction with the werewolves is really interesting because it sort of goes in sort of a Blair Witch direction.
Yes.
Because of course, you've got the werewolves trying to be pacifists, and they're basically trying to tell the vampire crew and the film crew, like, just, hey, buzz off. This isn't a good time. And of course, right in the middle of them trying to tell everyone to buzz off, the full moon shows up and just all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And you've got the shaky cam going on. So fair warning for anyone who may be listening to spoiler territory anyways. Just, yeah, if you get a little motion sick, definitely be aware of the shaky cam bit at the end, because that
Right.
could be a little bit disorienting.
We didn't talk about Stu.
Yeah, Stu really throws a wrench into everything.
It's funny because he's so unassuming it's. I guess that's the comedy part of it, where he's just this unassuming regular guy, but he just kind of gets into the worst predicaments. So, okay, yeah, Stu is cool. I like Stu. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, as a concept, I think this is interesting. I just, yeah, I can see the quality in it. I see where people who like this will get into it. I just don't think people who aren't into this type of subject matter is going to want to watch this. I think they'll be
yeah,
like, yeah, it's okay. And then that'll be it. So,
yeah. Your mind definitely has to have an appreciation for vampire mythos and lore to really get the enjoyment out of the film, in my opinion. And yeah, anyone who may not have the appreciation for it, they might just kind of go, "Hey, yeah, I guess it was interesting. I guess."
yeah. All right. So, you want to get into our final thoughts?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I think it's a quality film. If you are interested in the subject matter of vampires and the occult and things like that, I think for those who are into it, I can see why people like it. It seems to be pretty good on that end. But as for someone like me who isn't into those things, there really wasn't much to keep me captivated. There's some funny parts, sure, and it's clever in spots too. But it wasn't. I hate to say it's overrated because I think for the people who are into this, I can see them really liking this. But if you're not, I don't see a reason to recommend it. So if you're into it, great, go for it. If not, you can skip.
My thoughts are just, as a person who does appreciate vampire mythos and lore, just it's a fun movie. While it is a bit of a dark horror comedy movie, it's definitely not the type of comedy that will have you splitting your sides or anything. So, if anyone's trying going into this because they hear it's a comedy, don't expect that kind of humor. Just expect more clever humor that's more in the realm of just playing off of the vampire tropes and everything, because that's where most of the humor is going to be. So. Definitely something to keep in mind to sort of temper expectations.
Yeah.
All in all, just for anyone who may not have an appreciation for vampire legends and things like that, this one may fall a little bit flat for you. And uh, with that being said, it may be hard to recommend this for anyone who's not into to vampires. And to a slight tangent, maybe werewolves and zombies, because those are dark denizens that are featured towards the end of the movie. So, yeah, if you don't really have much appreciation for the supernatural and the occult, then um, unfortunately, this movie just may fall completely flat.
Yeah. Well, we are at the near the end of the episode. But before we get to the end, Zero, I have a question for you.
All right.
So we just watched a parody of vampire movies and things about the occult, and we gave our opinions, of course, just now. the question I have for you is, what type of movie or property or subject matter would you like to see made into a parody movie?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Anything,
Mm.
any kind of media, any kind of subject matter. What do you think would make a good parody? A parody film?
This is probably gonna sound real on the nose for me as a big video gaming person, but I would love to see a esports or video game influencer mockumentary.
Huh. Okay.
Mostly because I know that just the hype culture is so overblown right now,
It is.
and for me, I kind of sit and think and go, you know, I think someone could turn this culture just on its head with just an over the top mockumentary, just maybe following a fictional esports team or something, and maybe they're doing like silly shit or something like that. Like, um, gosh, there was one YouTube content creator that had made sort of like a comedy-based criticism video of all the esports teams right now building like multi-million dollar training centers and things like that, and it's like um, peak uh, peak esports pro culture. So you've got like the sponsor logos just plastered all over these buildings, um, just tons of expensive computers. You've got like the overly businessy types in conference rooms trying to like figure out ways on how to market the team and things like acquisitions and maybe partnerships with big publishers. And it's I remember just kind of like watching this criticism video, and I was just like, wow, that's a lot of spending for something that is in kind of a bubble phase right now,
Yeah.
and it could just go, and the minute it goes, no one's going to remember the team such and such training center powered by Rocket Mortgage or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I could really see somebody completely riffing off of this in kind of like a This Is Spinal Tap sort of documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just I think if we ever see an esports or influencer, a video game influencer mockumentary, that would be grand in my book.
That would be interesting. This is not like what you're talking about, really, but it is based on a video game. Have you heard of the movie called The FP?
Heard of it, never saw it.
Okay. Do you know what it's about?
Not
Okay.
offhand.
It's set in a post-apocalyptic future where people have to play a deadly version of Dance Dance Revolution. Okay.
Interesting.
That's the whole movie. Basically, they to win something, they have to play this game, and if you lose, you die. The game kills you essentially. That's I haven't seen it either. I've seen the trailer. It looks dumb as hell, and I'm just for that reason I'm kind of curious. But the ratings have not been great on it. But I remember seeing this and going, "Who the hell made this idea?" But yeah, yeah, but definitely gamer culture, especially esports gaming, is interesting in, I would say, in its rampant stupidity. It would definitely go for a good parody or satire movie. I'm probably gonna be a little more controversial with this, so if we get the hate, you can direct it at me. I think today's political landscape would make a fascinating parody or satire. And I'm not just talking about one group. I'm talking all of them. You know, make fun of the conservatives, make fun of the liberals, the progressives, the alt right. Everybody, just do everybody. Just show how fucking ridiculous all of this has become. And if someone can do it well enough and smart enough, I think it would be a fascinating movie to watch, and it could be brutally funny. It would force everybody to do something that I don't think people do nowadays, which is laugh at themselves. It just seems everyone is so super serious about themselves and who they are and everything. And it was honestly I used to be like that way back when. I would take myself super seriously and think that I'm an intelligent person. I should be treated as such. And like, but the moment you do that and you can't laugh at yourself, you become less of a, I would say, a human being. You become less of an actual person. And I think something like that would not only be interesting and could be hilarious, but could also be important. Because I think we definitely need to be reminded that despite our differences, we're all the same in certain ways. And it's okay to laugh at each other. And it's okay not only to laugh at each other, but at ourselves as well. So I think that would not only be a great parody or a satire to make, but maybe even an important one. The problem is, no one's going to do it because as soon as you make fun of one group, that a group attacks somebody. And then if you attack the other group, and then the other group against them, or call them snowflakes. And then if you attack another group, they'll attack that person, call the other group snowflakes. So I don't know who would have the guts to actually do it. But yeah, like the only satires I see of that is when they make fun of one specific group. And they often don't do it well. They just do it with stereotypes. So I'm just hoping somebody really has the balls to actually say, you know what, I'm making fun of all y'all because you all deserve it, and here we go. So that would be that would be the thing I would like to see as a parody or a satire.
I could definitely see just it being a bit of a contentious issue, especially in today's political climate, because just it's like you said, just if you make fun of one group in kind of a I guess dark comedy sort of way, then there's going to be somebody in the target group that's going to think that this is some sort of malicious attack on their character.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just like, yeah, that's not what this is. This is a dark comedy making extreme parodies using tropes found within those groups, and it would just go straight to hell, unfortunately, as much as it hurts me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing too, I'm thinking about too, it'll probably bomb because the people that it would be for are probably more, I guess, maybe not, but maybe more centrist-y types, which there are more centrists and middle-of-the-road people in this country than of either ideology, of either Republicans, Democrats, progressives, and alt-right. But there's much more centrists. It would be that thing where someone will be like, oh, so you're against X? Or you're against Y because you're laughing at us. Don't you think it's you're stripping our dignity by laughing at us? Like, fuck off! Like, come on. The best thing you could ever do for not only, I think, for your sanity, but to get people to lay the fuck off of you, is to laugh at yourself. Like, I can't tell you how many times or somebody was trying to like make fun of me or, you know, say something that was supposed to hurt my feelings. And I just go, yeah, and it's like, so, and what they would do after me is nothing because they'd be, oh, you admit it? Yeah. Okay. Well, fuck you. Bye. That's it. That's all you got to do. Like, people don't seem to understand, especially now. We're talking like old men, though. I'll say it anyway. When you ignore people who do that shit, they get bored and they stop. When they don't get a reaction, they generally stop. Calling any little thing, like any kind of insult or any time they poke fun of you as an attack or as something, I forget what they call it now, or a microaggression, just shit like that. The more that you try and say, "Oh my God, I'm being attacked," it's gonna happen more. Okay, because I've been guilty of it too in the past, where if I get a reaction that is not nice, but it's funny as fuck, I generally, a long time ago, but I would do it again. Because the reaction's so funny that I find it entertaining. So, yeah, I think we can all do a lot of good in this world if we just laugh at ourselves. not just other people, but ourselves. When people like to make fun of me, and if it's a valid thing, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. When people would call me a movie snob, at first I'd be like, I'm not a snob. I just like good movies. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm a snob. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, that would be my thing that I would like to be made into a parody or satire. All right, Zero. So we are at the end of the episode, but before we go, we have to talk about what we're watching next week. We're doing another parody, and you have chosen a banger. So why don't you let us know what we are watching next week?
We're watching the classic Scary Movie.
That's the 2000 movie from Keenan Ivory Wayans. I am going to be very interested in watching this because I haven't seen this since I saw it in the theaters when I was in high school. So it's going to be really interesting watching this. And I remember a lot of the gags because this is around the time where comedy was really fucking gross. I'm really gross. We're talking like There's Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber, stuff like that. And this one was particularly nasty in spots. So I'm interested to see how this turns out from watching it again. So
Yeah, this one will definitely be interesting, especially since, the humor was definitely gross for its time, and um, sometimes things hold up, sometimes things don't. So I'll be a bit curious on how it holds up myself as well.
yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it lands.
Yep. Well, on that note, that'll be the end of this episode of the Capital Games Movie Club. Tune in next week where we discuss Scary Movie from Keenan Ivory Wayans. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we'll talk to you next week.